Keeping the garden of mind. We have one responsibility, and that is the purification of mind. The purification of mind is simplified by understanding the different assumptions and beliefs that we have about ourselves and others, and our relationship to the inner world and the outer world, which is actually, in reality, one world. And the reason why we have a cause and effect reflection or a conceptual separation is so that we can understand the cause within and the effects without. Now, this cause and effect reflection brings everything back together again. It is through cause and effect reflection that we are able to understand what is in the garden of our mind, which represents the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious, so we can adjust or purify. And purify means releasing, letting go, and allowing or yielding. So the tending part, as you can see here, I put tending and yielding. The tending part refers to keeping the garden of the mind pure, releasing disempowering thoughts, ideas, assumptions about yourself and others, so that you can express from the garden of the mind to create what you intentionally desire, which is the seed that you want impressed on the subconscious. The seed being the vision, and what you'll find is the vision is actually received within, via your inner voice, conversation with the superconscious, which also exists in the garden of the mind. However, when we have certain beliefs and assumptions that disempower, it creates blockages within that prevents us from receiving the divine visions or the heart desires. The heart desires are always there. We always had and always will have our heart desires. Some of us tend to follow and express our heart desires, while others seem to have a hard time to express their heart desires. The hard time, or the friction, is a result of not tending to the garden of the mind. The hard time and the friction is to not be yielding to the superconscious to bring it forth. The conscious mind has information, and the subconscious mind has so much more access to information than we could possibly ever consciously imagine, at least in this stage. What we have to do is imagine what we desire to create, the visions of our ideal. And the reason why we pick a vision and impress it on the subconscious mind, it is because that during the process of impressing the subconscious mind, we also reveal in the outer world any kind of friction, the separation. This separation is primarily revealed through fears. We'll talk about this in a moment. We'll talk about visions of the ideal, how eternity exists right now, which is realized and understood at a deeper level once you bring it all back together, when you no longer need the separation for the cause and effect reflection. So why does the separation exist? Inner, outer, impress, express. It is to reveal and to understand. It's one of the reasons why it exists. But in a way, it may appear to cloud the judgment that actually everything exists right here. But there is a specific reason for that. Until we learn to keep the garden of the mind by tending and yielding being bringing forth what we desire, which is to yield to the subconscious and allow the subconscious to work with the superconscious to create, rather than using force of the conscious and even force-based impressed programming on the subconscious to bring it forth, which creates further separation. Until we release from that, we will continue to see the separation, and we'll continue to experience the separation between our vision and what we desire to create. And it will be externalized as people, environment, circumstance, and information that reveal the separation within us. We might assume it's them, or it is the outer world, but the truth of the matter is, it is within. Now, as you continue to do this work, as you continue to purify the mind, you will see more of the oneness, while you might also experience others seeing it as separation. And you might want to go over there and try to convince them that all of eternity exists right now, that their vision and bringing it forth is possible because all of eternity exists right now, and all they have to do is yield completely to their subconscious to externalize it for them. But if they are not at a position to understand this relationship between the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious, you will be met with resistance. However, this resistance is because it exists within you. You're looking for an externalization subconsciously to externalize the resistance within in the external world. The goal is to tend and yield to your own garden of mind. And then it externalizes as the experiences as others tending and yielding to their own garden of mind, because this is a reflection, it's one. Visions of your ideal. The Creator, in taking infinite plans to shroud with mystery his presence in every atom of creation, could have had but one motive, a sensitive desire that men seek him only through free will. Parmahansa Yogananda. Free will. We have the ability to choose what we desire to create. After what we desire to create has been impressed on the subconscious, the subconscious expresses via the connection with the superconscious. So our goal really then is to pick and choose what we desire to create. Have a vision. Neville says it's your choice, but you must remain loyal to the unseen reality you have constructed. Your faith will not give it reality, for faith is your loyalty to the unseen reality. So if you have a vision, and this vision has been impressed, and you believe that you have affirmed it to be so, then what we do is we remain loyal to this unseen reality. Now the truth is that this vision, or what we had imagined, already exists because it comes from the superconscious. The superconscious already knows what exists. We receive the vision within through our subconscious mind heart desire as a vision or a hunch or an inspiration or inner voice conversation, which in a way means the same thing but is received from the superconscious within. The vision comes from within, the Creator, superconscious, is received via the subconscious. We then have free will to then work with the subconscious via the conscious by imagining and affirming the vision. Now this could be done through Neville's imaginal act, could be done through subconscious mind audios, could be done through a vision board, it could be done through prayer, or whatever way works for you. Once it is impressed in the subconscious mind, we remain loyal to the unseen reality, because if it was sent by the superconscious, then it exists in this, what we call outer world, as reality. It's there. He says, your faith will not give it reality. Your faith is your loyalty to the unseen reality. So we remain loyal. How do we remain loyal? Well, this is where the tending and the yielding comes to play. Tending is the purification of the mind. It is the releasing and letting go of disempowering programming from the past that appears to deny the seed that has been planted, the vision on your subconscious. It can show up in the outer world as your experiences with people, environment, circumstance, and information. You will observe it. If it disempowers you, he calls this being reactive to the world of Caesar. Now, what I've also found is that not only can it appear in the outer world, but it can also appear in your mind, in your inner voice conversations, or imagination of disempowering potentialities in relation to what you desire to create. That is not in harmony with loyalty to the unseen reality. We want to remember this. Eternity exists now. Neville says, eternity exists and all things in eternity independent of your creative act. You may continue to build only upon what your mortal eye sees and perpetuate the same thing over and over again, remaining forever where you are. So you receive a vision within. You impress it within on the subconscious. It is in the process of being externalized. And then what we do is we tend to the garden of the mind. Whatever has shown up in the outer world right now and continues to show up is based on past impressions, be it conscious or subconscious. And whatever shows up, we can either understand and see how it's related or be reactive to it in a way that further affirms denial or programming that goes against the assumption of the feeling of the wish fulfilled, as he puts it. Which, by the way, is not loyalty to the unseen reality. Now, we don't have to shame ourselves when we have these experiences. Our goal is to tend to the garden. So what do? We change the programming within. We do it through revision. We do it through subconscious work. We do it through behavioral change, changing the environments. A lot of different ways to do it. The way that is right for you will be revealed. You know what it is because once it has been impressed on a subconscious, you are already yielding to it. You observe your friction. You know what you have to do. You know what needs to be done. But if there's resistance to do it, then we are not yielding. We're not allowing it to express. If there's things that need to be done. Because what you'll also find is that things change on their own. People change on their own. Circumstance changes on its own. Information and environment changes on its own. All of that is done, including the yielding within to the inspired action or the hunches and inspirations within that are expressed through you, the superconscious, which is the universal mind, which is connected to all. He says, but if you know that all things exist, though unseen at the moment, and you have access to them through your imagination, you can rearrange the pattern of your thinking and change your world by remaining loyal to the unseen construction. So that's it. That's all we have to do once the seed has been planted. Remain loyal to that unseen reality, what we imagine, by rearranging the pattern of our thinking. We change how we think about ourselves in relation to what shows up. We change our thinking about what shows up and bring it into harmony with the unseen reality, the vision of our ideal. And if we receive within a hunch or inspiration to let it go in the external world, we let it go. For whatever the reason is, we yield completely to the being within us, as he puts it, which is the work of the subconscious and the superconscious. He says, and when it externalizes itself by becoming a fact that you may share with others, then you will have found the secret of creation, which was an act of faith. So what is the act of faith? It is the bringing forth of your vision, which again is received via the subconscious. You receive it within, inner voice conversation, hunches, inspirations, visions that pop up in your mind. They are from the superconscious. They are bringing you into alignment between the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious, which is another way of looking at successfully tending and yielding to the garden of the mind, or keeping the garden of the mind. Now, through the process, you realize that eternity exists because you have a vision and you bring it forth and you repeat it again and again and again. And each time you do it, you understand the process even more. So, in order to really understand the process, we have to remember that what appears to stand in our way between the realization of our goal or our vision and where we are right now is past programming and disempowering information in relation to ourselves, others, people, environment, circumstance, and information that was previously planted, either consciously or subconsciously, in the garden of the mind. And our goal is to keep the garden of the mind. See the journey and the destination as one, because all is one. He says, for the moment, think of everything as existing now. So I'm a huge fan of Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. The very thought process, the very affirmation of all existing right now lets us go from the disempowering programming, which usually tries to get us to identify with past scenarios that are not going to play out, or potential future scenarios that are not going to play out, and we let go of them. Because when we affirm those ideas from the disempowering programming, we now begin to create those ideas in some shape or form on the bridge of incidence, which is the pathway we go on to the realization of the definite chief aim, or the vision, or the desired outcome. He says, although unseen in your mortal mind, your desire exists. So as mentioned, if you receive the heart desire within, it already exists. And it can be seen in your imagination. You can construct a scene in your imagination, and you can affirm that scene. And you know, because when you think about this heart desire, when you imagine this heart desire, there's a connection with it. You feel connected and one with it. That right there is the affirmation on the subconscious. And once the affirmation has been made on the subconscious, then we are yielding to the being within, which is the subconscious and superconscious connection, to bring it forth, while the conscious mind works to tend to the garden of the mind and yield by identifying and releasing the disempowering programming that is within. If you have a goal, although it is unseen, it already exists. Your normal mortal eye cannot see it, but by rearranging the structure of your mind, you can see it clearly. If, as the days follow one another, you remain loyal to this unseen reality, and your goal is reached, you will have discovered the mystery of creation. Neville Goddard. Now let's talk about yielding completely, allowing the subconscious and the superconscious to express. I always say this, 2 ways of creating what you desire, one from a place of force and one from a place of allowing, releasing within. And I've worked with both pathways in my journey in the entrepreneurial space, as well as other goals that I've had in my life. And what I've found is that by working with the space of yielding completely to the subconscious and allowing it to express while releasing the disempowering programming that prevents the allowing to express, I'm able to bring forth what I desire in creative ways that I could have not consciously imagined, based on thinking that is based on disharmony between the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. What we want is to connect with the superconscious, and you don't even have to understand how it works. It's a concept. We use it conceptually. We say conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. The subconscious and the superconscious have infinite ways that the conscious mind does not currently understand, may not currently understand. Perhaps in the future, as you bring forth success, you'll be able to create books and trainings and seminars and different explanations to guide people upon reverse engineering the success that you created by working with the subconscious and superconscious. And then people might look at that and say, that's the way. They become attached to the process. That is one process out of infinite processes that exist. It is far greater and far easier and far blissful, and it is our purpose to tend to the garden of the mind, to allow the process to unfold within by working in harmony between the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. Because that way you're going to bring it forth in a way that's right for you. And you don't have to constantly be listening to other people's opinions on how to bring it forth. Now, at this stage of the journey, you have a very deep inner voice conversation, a connection with the superconscious, I know. And as a result, when you have conversations with people or you consume information, you know what resonates with you and what does not. You know it now. That resonating feeling is yielding to the subconscious. That's your superconscious and subconscious in harmony communicating with you. Neville says, now yield completely and the being within you will take that and externalize it for you. Now really reflect upon that. Yield completely and the being within you will take that and externalize it for you. That is loyalty to the unseen reality. In order to work with these powers of mind, you must fully believe in the powers of mind. If you have doubts, disbelief based on past programming that you've learned from the outer world, then it's going to be harder for you to allow and yield completely. But that's okay, because part of this journey is to tend to the garden of the mind, release that programming. Now, it's going to happen anyways when you pick a vision and see it all the way to completion, which is the most simplest way to understand how all these concepts work, is to just pick a goal and commit to it and stay with it all the way through. Commit to it. Through the process, you're going to change. You're going to adjust your self-image to bring it more in alignment with what we call the higher self, or a higher version of yourself. This person that you can see in your imagination that you are becoming. That person that you are becoming has within it a certain combination of programming that makes that person be that way. And through the process of picking a goal and seeing it all the way to completion, you release the disempowering programming. And then what we're talking about here, this idea of yielding completely, will make even more sense to you. The whole idea of yielding completely can be very challenging when you're starting out on the journey, as it was for me, and that's totally understandable. In the journey, I always wanted in the beginning to know absolutely everything, how to do everything, and then I realized that was the ego mind, always wanting to control everything. And instead of, on the journey, as a result of releasing the programming, I ended up realizing that I'm going to bring it forth. I might not know how right now, how I'm going to bring it forth, but I'm going to yield completely. And my goal, as I continue this journey, is to yield more and more so each day, more and more completely to the subconscious and superconscious to externalize it for me. And as a result, I become more expressive. As a result, I'm more in flow. If things shows up, I have an inner voice conversation and I evolve the meaning within, and I no longer feel the reactivity to it. And as a result, creative hunches, inspirations, signs, and synchronicities reveal themselves, and I know what they mean, and I honor them. Yogananda says, there are always two forces warring against each other within us. Now, one is a force of empowerment and in harmony with what we desire to create, and the other is the force of disharmony and programming from the past or wherever it came from that is denying the assumption, which is not allowing us to yield completely to the subconscious and superconscious to bring it forth. Napoleon Hill said it really well in his book, Outwitting the Devil. He says, you are entitled to know that two entities occupy your body. One of these entities is motivated by and responds to the impulse of fear. The other is motivated by and responds to the impulse of faith. And at this point, we know faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. Will you be guided by faith, or will you allow fear to overtake you? Neville says to assume a new concept of yourself is to extend to change your inner talking or word of God, and is therefore putting on the new man. Our inner talking, though unheard by others, is more productive of future conditions than all the audible promises and threats of men. Your ideal is waiting to be incarnated, but unless you yourself offer it human parentage, it is incapable of birth. Human parentage, which really means to release, to remove, to guard the garden of the mind through the pruning, through the release of the disempowering programming, through the tending of the garden, which is maintenance. This is what we do every day. We can observe every single day when we are doing everything that we do, the kind of programming that we are allowing to be impressed on our subconscious. And as we feel Because as mentioned, right now you have an inner voice conversation. You'll be able to resonate if the programming is in alignment or not. You'll be able to feel it. You can then make a conscious choice and release it. You can release it in the inner world by changing the concept of yourself or the concept of yourself in relation to that five sensory data, or you could let it go. More accurately put, you change your state of mind. You go into the state of mind that is in alignment with what we call garden of the mind mindset. And the garden of the mind mindset is essentially to, in a way, go into the Garden of Eden and see it that way. That this outer world is an expression of the inner world, and this outer world is an expression of the trees that are planted within, that are bearing fruit in the outer world, be it fruit that you desire or fruit that you do not consciously desire, but subconsciously it was desired based on past allowing of certain programming that was placed either without you knowing consciously or through your own misunderstanding. But now you understand more, and each day you will understand even more. You must define the person you wish to be and then assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled in faith that that assumption will find expression through you. So expression through you into the outer world. The garden of the mind expressing the tree within through you and bearing fruit in the outer world. Now, as Napoleon Hill mentioned, he was talking about fears. And in Think and Grow Rich, he breaks them down into 6 basic fears. Now, fear is fear, but as mentioned earlier, we like to take things apart so we can put it all back together again, so it can make more sense. And that's the conceptual mind, the thinking mind that likes to do that. And we want the thinking mind and conceptual mind in harmony with the subconscious mind. Because unless you believe and understand, more accurately put, if you can get yourself to a place of understanding, then you will be able to impress the subconscious. So that's why we create these categories in our mind, so we can understand. It's when these categories in our mind externalize in the outer world that we create confusion because we are too identified with the categories that we create. The categories are guides. The conceptual categories are guides to help us on this journey. They're not necessarily there so that we can identify with them. Otherwise, we're creating too much convolution and complexity. So the goal, simply put, is to pick the vision that you receive via your superconscious, the hunch, the inspiration, the heart desire, impress it on the subconscious, and release the disempowering programming, which is tending to the garden. And the disempowering programming is categorized. You can categorize it, if you'd like, as one of these 6 basic fears or fear itself. So we got fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of ill health, fear of loss of love, fear of old age, and fear of death. Fear can manifest itself in something in the outer world to reveal the programming within in one of these categories. Or we could play it out in our imagination through our inner voice conversation or imagining certain things to be a certain way, which is a reflection of our garden of mind, what is in the garden of mind. And if we can choose, and if we continue to honor those thoughts of disempowerment, they can end up externalizing in the outer world. So we have a warning then within, through our inner voice conversation, of what can potentially show up in the outer world. The question is, what are we going to do about it? For example, on the journey towards creating entrepreneurial success, you may experience fear of poverty and fear of criticism if you're overly identified with it in the inner world in relation to creating the entrepreneurial success. Fear of poverty may show up as inability to ask for money because you created some story that is not in harmony with receiving fair compensation for the effort that you put out. Fear of criticism. You're afraid to express yourself because you are afraid that people will criticize you, when the power really is on your ability to understand what they're saying and pull what is relevant from it and let go of what is not relevant, discard it. And so any one of these categories here you could reflect upon based on what shows up for you on the journey and ask yourself, where does it fall into as far as these categories do? If you want to get granular like this, you don't have to. Fear is fear. but we create categories, we take things apart so we can put it back together again. Once you have identified this, you again go into the subconscious and you do the subconscious work to heal it, to release it. And my methodology, as everyone knows, is affirmations and self-talk. With affirmations and self-talk, I was able to go in and change whatever programming showed up along the journey that appeared to deny the assumption. And that's my process for attending. The inner conversations that we have reveal, they impress in the subconscious. So if we change our inner conversations, then whatever we change our inner conversations to will also impress the subconscious. And what we're looking to do is have our inner conversations in alignment with our vision, which is part of the loyalty to the unseen reality. If you want to copy this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.